What is up, guys? MinishCap1 here. Preseason 13 has arrived. That means new items, new build to try. I'm going to be doing a quick rundown of all of the old and still very good tried and tested item builds, as well as showing you guys a bunch of new item builds that are going to be really good going into season 13. Hopefully, you know, things always change, right? Always patching, always making things better, making things worse. So that being said, though, these are my thoughts on what builds are going to be good going into season 13, both old and new. So let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so first off, we have the classic builds. I'm going to be going through these classic builds just mostly quickly because you guys have seen me run these builds before. And then I'll be getting into the newer stuff, which is all of the newer stuff down here after that. So classic build 1 is just Demonic Start, Rylai's, AP Mythic Riftmaker. Then we have Anathemas for HP, Frozen Heart for armor resistance, and then Boots of Swiftness. Just, you can replace Boots of Swiftness in all of these builds with whatever boots you need. Just putting Boots of Swiftness there because it is the most generic standard option on Singed. Okay, so obviously Demonic Damage, Rylai's for slow and scaling, Riftmaker, or you can even do Rocket Belt to replace any of these, depending on the game state, depending on what you need. Just as AP Mythic to help you scale up. And then Anathemas for HP, and you put Anathemas on the most fed enemy carry, or the most fed enemy diver to protect your backline. Then Frozen Heart just for armor. Sorry, there's a AFK Buster now that is really aggressive, so we're gonna just auto attack this dummy while doing this video because otherwise it'll tag me as AFK. So, and then Frozen Heart will just help you reduce a lot of physical damage. You can replace Frozen Heart in this classic build with Force of Nature if you need magic resistance instead. But generally, the health from Anathemas and the health from your core build will help deal with magic damage and burst damage, while the armor on Frozen Heart or in classic build 2, Randuin's, will help you deal with sustained auto attack damage. So Frozen Heart is 90 armor and then 2.7k gold with no HP. And Randuin's is 3,000 gold with 60 armor and 400 HP. The difference is that Frozen Heart and Randuin's, Frozen Heart reduces attack speed in an area, and Randuin's just reduces the crit damage that you're taking in general. And you no longer need to actually pop the active. They changed it this season, so before you had to pop the active on the target that was critting you. I guess I'm still getting AFK busted. On the target that was critting you in order for it to reduce the crit. Now it's just a passive crit reduction, so Randuin's is actually really good now, and I'd actually recommend buying it a lot more than I used to, because the problem before was the target that was critting you, by the time you got in range to use the active on them, it wouldn't matter. You'd just already be dead, basically. But now with Randuin's just having a passive 20% crit reduction, really good. And then you have the classic full AP builds. These are I either recommend learning Singed players to do like classic build 1 or 2 or classic full AP, because I think that these builds right here, highest carry potential, but also very high volatility because you're not really building a lot of like defensive value, which is fine. Again, this is totally fine because Singed scales very well with AP on his Q, which is his main damage tool. Spamming hard AP will make you very deadly, and then you do have your ultimate for resistances, but you'd have to be a little bit more seasoned on Singed to play full AP builds. But I do think that their carry potential is very high. And I'd recommend trying them, you know, if you're a Singed veteran and he doesn't want to like build tanky every game. I think these full AP builds are very good. Basically just switching off Riftmaker, Rocket Belt, depending on if you need sustained damage on the front line for Riftmaker, or if you just need to be able to catch the back line with Rocket Belt. Alright, so last classic build is going to be the Tank Item 3rd. They got rid of Chemtank as a mythic, and the problem with this, it's not really a problem, but Chemtank used to be 2.8k as a mythic item, armor and MR. This season Chemtank is solely, I'll talk about it a bit later down here with this Engage build, but now Chemtank is solely just a it's just an MR item that gives you a bit of Engage. So the main Tank Mythic 3rd, this is like my favorite build on Singed. I love building Tank Mythic 3rd on Singed, or even second, just depending. But The main thing about this is now the only option you only have for tank mythic third that is not a new item. There are new items that are very good tank mythic thirds or second, but the classic one is going to be Even Shroud. We know Even Shroud's great on Singed. I've played it. It works. You can build it in basically any team comp as long as the conditions for building a tank item on Singed, or tank mythic on Singed, basically is that the enemy team has to have a high amount of burst damage, and they have to be squishy. Because if they don't have high burst damage and they're not squishy, then you're going to want Riftmaker or Rocket Belt instead for damage, right? Mostly Riftmaker, but Rocket Belt really good if you need like 1 or 2 people on the back line to catch. But if the enemy team comp is more squishier and they have high damage that are going to try and burst you down before you get in range, or even when you are in range, imagine you're playing versus things like, for example, what's a good one for this? Tryndamere. I like playing Even Shroud versus Tryndamere a lot. It's really good versus Tryndamere. You know, he's not a champion where he really gets super tanky, but he will kill you very quickly or kill your backline very quickly. So running through him to like peel the Tryndamere is really good. Even Shroud gets big value there. If you're gonna get crowd controlled a lot by squishier targets, then Even Shroud's really good too. Like this AFK Buster. In general, it's just really good for the stats as a third item. It's really cheap, 2.5k gold. You have great stats from it. 200 health, 20 ability haste, 30 armor, 30 MR. Great mythic passive, just generally a very good item on Singed. Does not scale the best though. I will say, when Chemtank was a mythic, Chemtank did scale better than this, but as a third item spike, it is very good, very cheap, cost effective, and you can definitely win games like this. Like I carried a few games versus Rogue 80 carry, Rogue Comp, at the end of last season, so that was cool. Moving on though, we are going to move on to the new items. All right, so these are the new builds that I have theory crafted up for you guys. The new mythic that I'm most excited about on Singed is going to be Jak'Sho the Protean. This item, I'm telling you guys, this one is looking like it's going to be probably the Chemtank replacement, the potential Even Shroud replacement. It just seems very, very good on paper for Singed. But again, being a tank mythic, you have to build it with the right caveats, right? So I would not build Jak'Sho the Protean if the enemy team has like a beefier front line they have to cut through. Then Riftmaker is better, obviously. But if the enemy team, like, you want to get in there and brawl, but they also just have really high damage, then Jak'Sho is going to be great. 400 health, 30 armor, 30 MR, 20 ability haste, 3k gold cost. The passive is called Voidborn Resilience. For each second in champion combat, gain a stack granting 2 armor and MR up to 8 stacks max, so 16 armor and MR over 8 seconds at max stacks. This is the big one. Become empowered, instantly draining enemies around you for 3% of your max health. Sorry, that wasn't the big one. As magic damage and healing you for the same amount. But here's the big one. Your resistances are increased by 10% until end of combat. Now, I want you to think about this. Okay? Singed ult gives a buttload of resistances. 30, 65, and 100 based on level. Okay? So imagine a level 16 Singed. You have Demonic, you have Rylai's, Jak'Sho, Anathemas probably, and then you're building into Rabadons, right? You maybe have like a Needlessly, okay? You have a absolute buttload of resistances already, because you'd have 3 legendaries, so you have 15 off Jak'Sho, so this would be a 45 armor and MR item. Then you pop your ult, then you have 145 armor and MR. Maybe you have conditioning, then that's an additional what is it, 8%? No, 4%, right? 4% armor and MR. Then you have the Jak'Sho passive, which procs for an additional 10%. If the enemy team does not have consistent true damage, this item will be absolutely crazy, because the only thing that can really effectively kill you at that point is true damage. You're going to have so many resistances, you're going to have so much health, because again, you're going to be combining this item with like health-based items like Demonic, Rylai's, Anathemas, things like this, so you have a good health pool, right? And then this is going to give you a ton of resistance. It's going to be super good. They did make Aegis of the Legion a bit more easily purchasable now. It is a 1200 cost item. The combined cost for its legendaries and mythics are the same, but the base cost of the component is lower, so you can buy it earlier, which is super nice. You can just go ahead and start spamming that armor and MR. So good. I love Aegis versus lanes like Kennen, where they're going to be doing a little bit of both. It's great versus Jace, so they do a little bit of both, right? Aegis is a great laning item, component item versus Jax too, who does a bit both damage styles, right? So Jak'Sho the Protean is probably going to be my favorite mythic for the foreseeable future, but There have been like some people who are saying that they will be changing it potentially to do more damage and be less tanky, or maybe to be more tanky and do less damage. We'll have to see. We'll see how it goes. As it stands though, this item seems fantastic to me. It seems like a great singed item. Don't sleep on it. Again, you can't build it every game, but when you can build it, it's going to be awesome. All right. Here is another big one, the new Rod of Ages. Rod of Ages, the old and the new, is back. So the only thing with this mythic is I'm pretty certain unless you build it first, it's going to be absolutely useless. And you know, warning, I don't know if it'll be that great on Singed, just because it's like it doesn't give you like a lot of damage in and of itself. You get 100 AP, but that's after 10 minutes or whatever. Yeah, after 10 minutes. And you get 500 health, that's after 10 minutes. The mana is kind of whatever. The Eternity passive does look really cool, but you have to bear in mind this item is 3.2k. Old Rod of Ages was like 2.7, and you have the same stats, just no mythic passive, right? I have to play test this and see, because it does have a Eternity passive which is different now. Basically, you get all the stats stacked up after 10 minutes. You gain a level, that's kind of cool, and then all effects of Eternity are increased by 50%. So Eternity passive is restore mana equal to 8% of pre-mitigation damage taken from champions. So not including armor and MR, you restore mana equal to 8% of that, and health equal to 20% of your mana spent. Up to 15 health per cast per second. So Singe restores 13 health per second from, or not 13, it's less than that. It's with the bonus it'll be like 5, but bear in mind, you're going to be taking damage too to help charge this up. And then for every 250 health or mana restored in this way, again, so if you're taking damage, this will proc faster. Gain 25% decaying movement speed for 2 seconds, and that is boosted by 50%, assuming it's fully stacked up. So if you can get your hands on this item early enough and then snowball with it, I think it'll be very good. But in general, I'd have to test it to see how good it is, because I just don't know if it can replace Riftmaker or Rocket Belt as an AP mythic. Riftmaker giving you great damage towards the front line, Rocket Belt giving you great damage towards the back line. It's just it's hard to replace those niches, and plus you're paying a lot of money for mana here, which like it's whatever on Singed, right? Like it's nice to have, but you only need mana. So definitely something to consider. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like the worst item on Singed, but you have to buy it first is the thing, because it's going to take you 10 minutes to stack it. You basically have to buy this first. Maybe you get your mythic item at like 14 minutes, right? The game would have to last to 24 minutes for you to get value out of this. I have to play test it and see how valuable that movement speed is, especially with the boost that you get whenever it's fully stacked up. The level up will be big for sure, because Singed benefits very greatly from level ups, because you need that level 16, right? Or like you don't need it, but you want it. So that'll be very interesting, but we'll have to see. You know, it'll depend. It might end up being a very good item. We just don't know, because you have to play test it versus like non-PvE players, right? So moving on, new Heartsteel. This is an interesting mythic. I don't know if this will be as good as Jackshow, but basically Heartsteel 3.2k, so a lot of gold for this one, a lot of gold. Anathema's is 2.5k for 650 health, so there's a lot of money for Heartsteel here. But 200 base health regen and 20 ability haste. Read the passive here, guys. So basically the passive is called Colossal Consumption. It's just a giant grasp of the Undying proc. So charge up a powerful attack against a champion over 3 seconds while within 700 range of them. 700 range is bigger than Caitlyn auto range over 3 seconds, which is good. And that is only 30-second cooldown per target, meaning if you're in a fight long enough, you can auto each enemy champion 1 time during your ultimate, and you will gain 10%. You will deal 125 plus 6% of your health as physical damage. So it gives Singed a good way to deal actual physical damage, and gives you back permanently 10% of the amount that you deal as permanent max HP. This will be interesting. Potentially very good on Singed, but it is quite expensive, so we'll have to wait and see. And the thing with an item like Heartsteel is like the earlier that you get it, the more effective it's going to be. But you're not really going to be spending 3.2k gold on a Singed tank mythic as your first item, really, ever. You've never really done that ever, so yeah, something to consider. I think it'll be very good as a third item. because you do need your core, I think, before Heartsteel. You could go theoretically Demonic into Heartsteel, right? Because Demonic gives you the AP to HP or HP to AP conversion. You could do it, right? And then you would have like good percent magic damage, and then you have like decent percent physical, but the percent is based on your health, not their health, right? But you're gonna have so much HP, maybe it'll work out. The items that I'm pairing with this are going to be Demonic, Rylai's, Heartsteel, Stone Plate, Death Cap, and Boots of Swiftness. I just think like, well, again, any boots really. I just think like if you're gonna have that much HP, then you're gonna want to have a lot of resistances behind it. Hence the Stone Plate. You could change up the Stone Plate, and you could go like a different mythic or a different legendary here too. But I just feel like the resistances will be really good with the Heartsteel. Plus, it keeps you in combat longer, more Heartsteel procs, right? Then Death Cap, just to finish off your build. You're gonna see a lot of Death Cap in these. A lot of Death Cap in these builds, because I just think that it's a solid singed item as a 6th item. You don't have to buy it, but generally it's very good if you can get to it. So decent. Again, and a lot of these minor items with the other builds, I just think that generally mixing up a good combination of HP and AP is really good unsinged. And if you're going to build a tank mythic for HP, AP, and resistances, then you're going to want to lean a bit more into your AP if you can. But otherwise, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you have the right mix of stats for the game that you're playing in. Remember, itemization is always, it is going to always be situational for the game, unless you have a core build that you can really enjoy every single game, that is effective every game. But no build is the best build for every single game on Sin. That's the thing. The champion is very versatile, and adapting to the game that you're in is a very strong skill. But that being said, let's go ahead and move on. Radiant Virtue. I don't think that Radiant Virtue will really be that great unsinged. I put it in here because there's definitely gonna be people who try it. The heal that you get. So let's go over what Radiant Virtue is first. So 400 health, 30 armor, 30 MR, 20 ability haste, 3k gold. The mythic passive is 100 HP. Upon casting your ultimate, you transcend, increasing your max health by 10% for 9 seconds. While transcended, you and your allies within 1200 range of you gain 15 non-ultimate ability haste and heal for 1% of your max health every 3 seconds. Increase up to 100% based on that champion's missing health. So you will heal for 1% of your max HP, and that is going to increase, increase based on how low you are. I think that means basically up to 2% max health every 3 seconds based on your missing health, is what it means. And then that affects your allies in the area too. I don't see this being that amazing on Singed, because you're not really focusing on healing your teammates. I just don't know who this would be good on, right? Like what fighter or tank or bruiser wants to get into a fight and then their focus is on healing their teammates? You know what I mean? It's just like, maybe Maokai would like this, maybe, but kind of hard to say. So I'm just not seeing this item as being very usable on Singed, but potentially, you know, we never know. We might as well try it out and just see what we can do with it. Demonic, Rylai's, Radiant Virtue, Anathema's, Death Cap, pretty standard overall, with just the whole Singed vibe here. Here's one I think is very cool though. This last build that I theory crafted is probably going to be the most interesting out of all of them. The Engage Lord build. So you'd have to run this with Predator, obviously, because you're an Engage Lord. But because Chemtank is no longer a mythic again, we could theoretically do a a mythic Rocket Belt. You're not gonna have a whole lot of damage with this because you're not going demonic early, but the idea is you're just gonna engage over and over. I'd probably do Ingenious Hunter with this, but we're gonna be doing Rocket Belt, Rush into Chemtank Legendary, so you have double engage items, triple if you count Predator boots, triple engage, then Demonic Embrace, Rylai's, and Anathemas for scaling. So you just pop Predator, you get in close, you pop Chemtank as you're approaching, and then whenever you see that target you want to pick, you Rocket Belt onto them, then you fling them. Huge movement speed potential, huge pick potential. Very cool idea here. Maybe it can work. We'll see. We'll have to see. It'll depend, because Chemtank is an MR item, so you'd have to play it into like a magic. Maybe they have a super fed mage you just want to pick off, right? Maybe the enemy team comp is Kennen top lane and Syndra mid lane. You just want to be able to get in there and just and just, you know, just mess around and get your fling and be disruptive, right? Like, it's totally possible, it's viable. I've always enjoyed creative builds like this. I've always really enjoyed making the champion like just move as fast as possible. I think it's really fun. So potentially something cool if you guys want to try it out. Bear in mind, again, your damage will not be the highest because you're not building your core AP items until 3rd and 4th here, which generally Rylai's and Demonic are your core in most every build except for the Rite of Ages build and in the Engage Alert build. But again, we'll have to wait and see. So in general thoughts, the core is not really different. Demonic Rylai's Demonic, 1st or 2nd depending on the game. Basically every game except during the Rite of Ages build where you'd have to go Royal first to stack it up and get that free level up and get the Eternity stacked up. But in general, your core is really not different, or in the Engage Alert build, obviously. And the new Mythics on Singed, the best one out of those, I think, is going to be Jakusho the Protean. That one looks the most interesting to me. That one looks the most fun to me. That one seems like it has the most synergy with Singed. Classic builds are basically unchanged except for the removal of Chemtank as a Mythic, but Even Shroud's always been there as an option instead. A good option instead. Classic AP builds are really just the same. If you want to just 1v9 your games, this is the way to go. They are harder to play, but they are very fun. And then just your classic general builds with anathemas plus armor item is just, those are still normal too. I think Season 13, hopefully, in terms of items, will be good for Singed. We'll have to see. The removal of Chemtank as a Mythic does have me a bit apprehensive, and they're basically really changing up the tank landscape by removing Sunfire as a Mythic, and they also made Frostfire into a more expensive Mythic now, which builds out of, actually, is it even a Mythic? It is a Mythic, yeah. But it builds out of Sheen now, which is interesting, so we'll probably see champions like Irelia abusing this, we'll probably see champions, potentially like Riven abusing this even too, because it builds out of Sheen. So something to consider. I think the item will be cool to see on other champions. You can't really build it on Singed. There's no point building this on Singed. You just don't need that additional slow on Singed because you're gonna build Rylai's. And even then, if you're not building Rylai's, the slow is not good enough to build it. But yeah, that being said, those are sort of my thoughts on new item builds for Singed in Season 13. If you guys have any questions or comments that you wanna share about your thoughts on the items, I'd really appreciate reading them. I read every comment on the channel, even the mean ones, but especially the nice ones. I love the nice ones. You guys are awesome. And we will call it there. So enjoy pre-season 13, guys. Hopefully it'll be a banger. We'll see. Better than season 12, hopefully, where they just ruin top lane. But I digress. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll catch the next one. See ya. Thanks for watching.